welcome back to Yerushalmi Maasrot. We are Perek Rishon Halacha Daled. Now, we have spoken about when is Oinas HaMaasrot for various fruit. Various stages in development where it's called a fruit, it's called a food, and if it's detached from the ground, there's a Chiv Trumas HaMaasrot. You can't have a fixed eating if you've not separated Trumas HaMaasrot. But the Chiyuv and Torah of Trumas HaMaasrot is when they're not yet Nigmar Balacha in the Sadeh, right? If they're not yet complete. Even Midrabanon, they're not Asur, only a fixed eating, but not sort of a temporary eating. So we're going to talk about now what is like the Gemar Malacha for various fruit. And at that stage, even a temporary eating is forbidden. Okay, if you've not separated Trumas HaMaasrot. So Ve'ezehu Garnon. So when is like the Gemar Malacha, as it were? Garnon, of course, means sort of granary, the things put together in the storehouse. But we're saying when is like the completion of the development of these fruits, which are mentioned in the earlier Mishnayos, Maasrot. Hakishuin, now whether that's courgettes or whatever it is, badiluin and pumpkins, right? Gourd is called in English, yeah? Their Gemar Malacha is Mishiaf Kisu. Right, some say Mishiafakes. We will see when it's a certain fruit. We will see the development of that. It's a sort of a hair which grows on it, like a featherish hair when they're small, and it falls off when they are ripened. And if you gather it before they've ripened, in order to sell in the market, the hair is still on them, and you remove it, and that is the Gemar Malacha, is when you remove this hair. If you're not removing this hair, you're just selling it as it is. Then the Gemar Malacha is Mishiyamid Arema. Now Arema, what is it, like a mound of it of some kind? Yeah, you're sort of making a pile of them. You're making a pile of them. Right. Avatiach, some sort of melon perhaps. The Gemar Malacha is Mishiyah Shalek. That means you remove the Shalek. Shalek is this hair which covers it. It's the same ficus that we have with cucumbers. But if you're not removing this hair, then the Gemar Malacha is Mishiyase Muksa. When you leave it next to those which are left in storage to dry out, like you do with Kishun, you'll sort of set them aside in storage, and you'll put this one next to those which are set aside where you dry them out. Yerek Hanegad, which is a vegetable where you sort of tie it in bunches when you sell it in the market, then the Gemar Malacha is Mishiyogad, when you sort of tie it up. If you don't tie it up, then the Gemar Malacha is Mishimale Sakli. When you fill up the container where you're gathering them into this vegetable. There's no other malacha till you sell it, and you just fill up the container and that's it. But if, however, you have no intention to fill up this vessel, then the Gemar Malacha is Mishiyil Kosakli. You will cut all that's needed, even though the vessel is not full. But if you're happy with half a vessel, once you've fitted in half amount of the vessel, then it's already Chaim Trumas HaMaasrot. Kalkala, which is a basket of fruit and vegetables, where you don't really tie them up at all, you just put them inside to sell them. Then the Gemar Malacha is Mishiyachapeh, when you sort of cover over the fruit and the vegetables with leaves. That's what they used to do. Okay? It could be the basket has got a wide open mouth, so you want to cover it with leaves. The keli we mentioned before maybe had a more narrow opening. But if you're not covering it over, then the Gemar Malacha is Mishiyah Maleh Sakli, when you fill up the vessel. If you're not filling it up, you don't have intention to fill it up, then the Gemar Malacha is Mishiyah Kotsakai, when you've cut as much as you need, as much as you want to cut. Okay? Right. When do we say this is the Gemar Malacha of the fruit and vegetables, and then there's the Isur Tevel, and you can't even eat it temporarily? But when you're taking these fruit and vegetables lashuk to the market, if you take them to your home, so you can eat temporary until you reach the house. They don't become tevel to be forbidden for temporary eating until you actually bring them in your house. This is learned. It says in the pasuk, "Bi'ati hakodesh v'nabayis." So tevel is not chayv ma'isa even after Gemar Malacha until it goes into the house. Right? You open it abayis. There are other dinim which are kover l'ma'isa. Things which, if they happen even before it gets to the house, they are tevel midrabanan. That is mekach. Let's say you sold it after you cooked it, or you salted it, or separating truma, Shabbos, after Shabbos comes in, that makes it into fixed for Maisa, yeah? Bringing it into a courtyard, so there's machlokes exactly what sort of courtyard. Some say courtyard is Tevel ben Torah, it's Tevel ben Torah, like a house, and some say so Rabbanan. So there are other dinim as to when it loses its permission to have it achilas aray, sort of temporary eating. Okay, let's carry on. Some say even if you take it in the market, you're not chayav maasros unless it's seen the house. And it's talking about a case where you've got a house next to your field, where you put the fruit before you take it to the market. And they're not chayav unless you brought it to your house before you take it to the market. Alright, let's move on. Ha-pered. Now, pered here is not a mule, right? But what is it? It's some sort of pomegranate seeds. They would break open the pomegranate, take out these seeds, and on that, it's called pered. And every garge is called Preda Shel Rimaim. Some say they would dry them in the sun, and they would separate one from the other so the sun will reach all the sides of it. Hatzimokin, which are sort of raisins of grapes. V'acharuvin and carobs. Their gemar malach is Mishiyamid Arema. Again, when you make a pile of them. Habatzalim, these onions. The gemar malach is Mishiyafkilu. When you sort of peel them, remove the peel. V'me'ena mafakel. But if you're not peeling them, then the gemar malach is Mishiyamid Arema when you make a pile of it. Hatzavua, the grain, mishmarech, when you smooth it out. You smooth the bundle, the pile of the grain. But if you're not doing that, then mishiyamid arema. Again, when you make some sort of pile of it. Hakidnias, the parsi, is mishiyichbar. Yichbar is sort of expression of sieving, isn't it? It's sort of sieving them down. You put it through a sieve to clean it from the earth and the dust or the dirt. But if you're not doing that sieving process, then malach is not complete. Adshi mareach, until you sort of smooth it out like you do with grain. And another malacha with the gemar malacha of grain through merach, afa pish mirach. Even if you did do merach to this pile and the gemar malacha, noitel min hakutaim. You're allowed to take sort of the broken ears which have not been threshed properly, or min hastodim, from the sides of the pile where you've got things which have not been smoothed properly. These gargirim which weren't separated from the chaff and the straw, and you can eat it achilas aray. All these are not gemar malacha. Now, although the main grain has been smoothed out, and there is a gemar malacha, we don't say it's considered the whole thing has been reached this gemar malacha stage. You understand? So you've got things on the side, a bit of dirt, things that have not been threshed properly, they remain permitted for a temporary eating. Now, hayayin, another din about what is gemar malacha with wine and oil. Hayayin, the gemar malacha of wine, is mishiyah kaper. Now, after the wine goes from the top vat, where they press the grapes, into the boil, which is like a bottom vat. So at that stage, you remove the pips and the grapes, skins and so on, which are floating on the surface of the wine. Removing these things is called kipui, right? And that's a gemar malacha. And Avbi Shekipah, and even though you did this sort of draining away, and there is a gemar malacha with wine, and you can't drink from it even aray, nevertheless, you are allowed to take from the top vat, which is the wine gets through it into is a pipe which leads into the bottom vat. But Shoisen, you can drink. You're allowed to drink from the wine in the top vat and in the pipe, because the malacha of the wine in the top vat is not yet complete. You're allowed to drink it in a temporary measure. Okay, so the wine in the top vat and the pipe you can take from it, but not when it's gone into the bottom. Okay, there's this machlokes tanoim in Brises. There is machlokes tanoim in the Brises brought in the Bavli in Bavli and Avodah Zarah. According to one opinion, the gemar malacha of wine as soon as it goes into the bar. According to Rabbi Kiva, it's mishiyishle b'chavis. That means the time when you remove it from the vat and you put it in a barrel, which is later, or maybe the wine carries on sort of bubbling away in the barrel, and some of this sediment goes upwards. The gemar malacha is you remove the sediment from the barrel. All right, let's carry on. Hashemen. What about the gemar malacha of oil? Mishiyered le'uka. Now again, this is a pit where the oil drips into from the olives which are being pressed. And the Mishnah continues, Apishi Yorad, even though it's gone into this pit, and you've got a Gemar Malach of the oil, and you can't have it, Achilas Arai, Naita Min Ekel. You are allowed to take oil from the Ekel, which is a basket where we hold the olives back. There's a bit of oil there. Min Memel, which is a stone they would use to grind the olives before pressing them. Sometimes there's a bit of oil on that. Mibeina Patzin. Now these are cracks between the various boards which are used for holding back the olives. And sometimes you might get a bit of oil there. But noise, then you take from that oil, which you took from these boards, lachamita. You can put it into a food where they used to sort of smooth it with oil when they take it out of the oven. So this is like a small cake that they used to sort of smooth it and add a bit of oil when they took it out of the oven. And you can put the oil into a dish where they put a hot food, and you can eat it without taking ma'aser. This oil is not gemar malacha because it's not yet gone into the proper container, and it's mutter to eat it as a temporary eating. You must not use this oil into like a big pan, or into a pot, when they are hot. Right? When the food is boiling, because that's like a proper bishul, which does make a ma'aser obligation. And the oil therefore becomes tevel, and you can't eat achilas arai until you take ma'aser. Rabbi Yehuda says the colonizing. No, you can put it anywhere from this oil, even to a pot when this is hot, because according to him it's not bishul and it's not kavel ma'aser. Except when you come to like the fish juice and so on, which are pickled in salt, you can't put into them when they're boiling. Right, from that oil. You can't put that oil into this boiling hot fish stew and eat it without taking ma'aser, because the sharpness of the vinegar helps to cause the bishul to take place, and cooking is a relevance for ma'aser. Cooking makes an obligation. It becomes like it's kaveya la ma'aser. The ma'aser obligation will come about once it's been cooked. And by putting it in this hot sear, it brings about a cooking process. Okay, we said kishud v'ndeloid mishiaf kisu. We said remove the hair. It means the yom b'aksuse. You remove the hair of a teach shalek min diyom shal kuke. You remove the hair of it. Now, hayam mafakes rishon. This, let's say you're removing the hairs of mashalek rishon. So you took a bit of the fruit in front of it, but you didn't take all of it. Line it v'lu. It's not tebel yet. Actually, fakes kal sake. Remove all. Vishlak kal sake. That you'll finish all the fruit which you need now. You'll take hair off all the fruit which you have in front of you. If you've not done this, it's not considered a gemar malacha, even for those fruits which you've already removed the hairs. So it seems you have to do all that you need to do. You understand? That you have to remove all the hairs, otherwise it's not considered complete. This reminds me of the Shitta of Yerushalmi in Boira. Remember that? Melechus Boira, where in Bavli it holds if you remove some of the bad, you're Chaim Boira, right? Yerushalmi says you're not Chayav until you remove all the bad. Not just some of the bad. You've got to remove all the bad away. It's the same idea here. He says it's not Tevel until you remove all the hair that you want to do. Right? Otherwise it's not considered Malach. Although it's not exactly the same din, but anyway. P-case, the shilek, if you take the pumpkin or whatever it is, the shilek, and the melon, when one of them b'shusa hegdash, if you took these hairs when it was in hegdash state, u'padaya, and then you redeemed it, potter, it's potter from Maasrot. At the time of the gemar malacha, that's when the chiyuv Maasrot takes place, and at that time they were in hegdash status, right? They were in hegdash, so therefore that's not a time to obligate. Yerek hanegat, a vegetable which is bunched up. So this din that the eged is a gemar malacha of the vegetable, it becomes tevel, is when the agadai tzinoik gadol asada. When if you made a bunch of it, a big bunch for the field, right? All the ones in the field you collected, and they become tevel. You made a massive bunch. And when agadai tzinoik katan lashuk, if you just made a small bunch, like you do the ones sold in the market, right, where you make many small bunches and you sell them for a pruta, then nitbal, then it becomes tevel when you made it into small bunches. So what's this? When is it gemar malacha? When you made a big bunch for the field. But if you made a small bunch for the market, that also nitzbal, right? That's also becomes tevel in that stage, right? He says here, avol here doesn't really make sense. The truth is, there's no difference between the reish and the sefer. The yerek is tevel, whether you made a big bunch or you made a small bunch. And some leave out the word avol. Yeah, leave that word avol, you can leave it out, right? Rabbi Ezra Boy. I'm not sure either. I don't know if the board is down upstairs. I think the board's not down properly upstairs. Yeah, it's a bit clearer, the noise. I don't think so. I think the board is putting down. Can I trouble you? I'll wait for you. Shall I carry on? Yeah. Rabbi Ezra Boy, Rabbi Ezra asked, how can you tell me if you made a big bunch is tevel? I mean, you're going to undo that bunch and make many small bunches to sell in the market. And you're saying it's tevel when you bunched it and made a big bunch. This is how you have to learn it. You made a big bunch in the field. So you made a big bunch and you're going to make small bunches in the market. You're going to take the big bunch to the market and undo it and make small bunches. Nitzbal. Then it becomes tevel, because in the field you're not going to do any more malacha. Even though it's your intention to do more malachas later on, but there's already a gemar malacha in the field and it becomes tevel. So we've just said that if you had a big bunch in the field, but you're going to undo it and do small bunches in the market, that also creates a tevel status. Yeah. Kalkala mishiachaper, the basket when you cover it over, and if not when you fill it up, and if you're not filling it up when you've done it as much as you want to do, you had one basket, you want to fill up half of it, right? Once you put in half, it becomes tevel. That's the gemar malacha. If you had the intention to fill all of it, it's not tevel until you actually fill it up. If you had two baskets, you want to fill up both, it's not tevel until you actually fill up both, because everything bases on your intention. But we said in that Mishnah, when it's malacha, when you take it to the market. But then you can eat temporary until you reach your home. What's the difference between going to the market and going to your home? When you're going home, it depends on your intention. It doesn't depend on others. Your intention is to bring in your house. So it's not yet tevel until it comes into your house. But when you're taking the market, it doesn't depend on you. It depends on those who are buying it. You might find people straight away to buy it as soon as you leave the field. But and it becomes tevel straight away. If they buy it, it becomes tevel straight away. So as soon as the gemar malacha of the fruit in the field is there, and they're ready for you to take to the market, then the temporary eating is forbidden. Okay? Now, we said some of these raisin pips and so on, or the carrots, when you make a pile of it, Tanya we learned, you make a pile of it on the top of your roof after you dry them. You're telling me in the field, only if you do it on the top of your roof it's gemar malacha. If you dry in the field it's not gemar malacha. Why not? He's telling you a chiddush here. If you make a whole pile on the top of your roof, that's gemar malacha. Definitely if you do it in the field. The idea is when you remove those peels, etc. Mindu yorim pudgara. When you remove the shells, the peels of the onion. Tavua mishis marech, rain when it's smoothed out. When you beautify the face of the mound. Didn't we learn now we've learned you don't separate truma until after gemar malacha. When it's gemar malacha of grain, and you can take truma of it, when you have a sort of vessel which is iron, which you use for winnowing. And after the winnowing, they would stick it in the ground and make a pile around that vessel. Right? And when that's finished, then they would uproot the vessel afterwards. Now, what do you see here? The gemar malach of grain is smoothing. This price says the gemara is when you remove the hoe, as it were, right? This vessel you've stuck in the ground, when you remove the hoe, that's the gemar malacha. So Khan, it depends. Amish is talking about b'shiach data the mareach. You're going to smooth it out. So there's no gemar malacha until after smoothing. But Khan in the Bryce is b'shein data mareach. You're not going to smooth it out. So then the gemar malacha is you just made a pile around this hole that you've stuck in the ground. Hakitni es b'shiach. Well, the pulses when you sieve it. Tani wula double kofer who mixas. You can sieve some of it. The Torah min hakovo al sheina kovo, and take truma from that which is sieved, from that which is not sieved. So although the one's not yet sieved is not gemar malacha, and you can't usually take truma from gemar malacha for something not gemar malacha. So Ila explains, Amar Rabila, the reason is sheken derech balabatim leis machnisin l'tach batein. The people at balabatim, they put in their houses these pulses which have not been sieved, and since there are people who do this, then it's not considered lining gemar malacha, and you can take truma from that which has been sieved. My tab, what's the source for this? That there are people who have put in their house kitnias which have not been sieved. It says, "Va'alafim yarim ovdei adama," the workers on the farm, belel chometz yachelu. Basically, they eat from the fruit which is mixed in. Belel chometz means mixed with earth. Right? They eat from these things. So you see people eat things without it being sieved. Some say the word alafim, oxen. The ones who teach the oxen to plough. Okay. Some say there'll be so much shefa. The oxen and the donkeys, they work the ground, they will eat a tiny bit of grain like people. Alright. Where are we? Over here. Kavar b'shus ha'hekdesh ubdaya. So if you sieved it while it belonged to hekdesh, and then you redeemed it, so you mean these pulses were hekdesh, and then you sieved it while they belonged to hekdesh, and then you redeemed it. Do we say, well, you could have eaten it temporary before you sieved it, if you'd redeemed it? And now the gemar malacha of the kidneys with the sieving, so it comes out, he did an action of gemar malacha which was hekdesh, it'll be potter of maasrot, like grain which is smoothed out in b'shus hekdesh is potter. But we say no. The sieving is not gemar malacha during hekdesh's domain to exempt it from maasrot. So does the sieving exempt it from maasrot or not? Yeah, that's the question. Well, if you did sieving while it belongs to hekdesh, does that exempt from maasrot? So what we got? Hasib Rav Chinna. Rav Chinna, he's got a question on the doubt. But I'll tell you, we learned Shila v'kippah. You remove the wine from the bow into these barrels, or you remove the pips and so on, which are floating on the wine surface, and that's the gemar malacha to forbid the wine achilas harai, and that is b'shus hekdesh. The wine at that time belonged to hekdesh, and then you redeemed it, and you're potter from Jerusalem Maasrot, because at the time of gemar malacha it was in b'shus hekdesh. So any action of gemar malacha while it's in hekdesh's domain, potters from Jerusalem Maasrot. So the same thing if you sieved the pulses while it's in the domain of hekdesh. So the Gemara answers, based on Rav Yehuda and elsewhere, it could be the same thing over here in Asugya. Rav Yehuda makes a chiluk between sort of pickling fruit and cooking them and smoothing it out the grain. Now, all these things like pickling and cooking, smoothing are kover maaseh. You can't eat achilas harai, but there's a difference between them as far as certain dinim. Rav Yehuda, taman, but as far as pickling and so on, you could get by without it. It's not considered gemar malacha, because sometimes you're not going to cook it, you're not going to pickle it. But with the smoothing out of the grain, you can't get by without it. And since you can't get by without it, that's a gemar malacha for everything. So the same thing here, removing the sediment of the wine, you can't manage without it, so that's gemar malacha. So if it's done b'shus hekdesh, it's part of maasrot. But sieving the pulses, you don't have to do it. Therefore, it's not gemar malacha, it's not considered important, and it could be if it's done b'shus hekdesh, it would not patter. And the Gemara proves that you can manage without sieving. So Amar Ravina said, the balabatim, they bring into their houses the pulses should not be sieved. As it says, Ma'alafim va'yarim, those who work the land, belel chometz yachelu. As we said, it's a mixture of the grain and the dirt. Now another brisa about the gemar malacha of kidneys, which is when you make a sieve, when you sieve it, Tani, we've learnt, you can pick up the grains, the pulses, from under the sieve and eat it. So So these grains which are falling together with the waste through the holes in the sieve, there's no Gemar Malacha on them. You can eat it temporarily. Only the kidneys which stays in the sieve, that you can't eat, because that's considered Gemar Malacha. Now we bring a Machlokes Amoraim. The reason of this din in the Brisa, right, that the kidneys which falls into a sieve is not considered Gemar Malacha, right, if it falls through the sieve, even though it's been sieved, right, but it's gone through the sieve. Rav Chisda, the reason is Shehem Mechusayin L'Ruach. He says the wind moves it around. The wind has not blown on it. What do they say there? Is the wind sort of separates the waste, which is falling together with the psolos and the thing, and since you catch it from under the sieve, the wind has not yet blown on it, it's not called Gemar Malacha.
But land on the floor still be dirty.
Well, you might clean it, but he's saying the wind hasn't affected it. The ruach hasn't blown it or something. See what they say here? The sieve will separate the dirt which is stuck, but you still need the wind to blow to clean it from the psolos which is stuck. And since you take it straight away as it falls, and it's not cleansed through the blowing of the wind, it's not considered Gemar Malacha. It's not as if the wind has created its status. Rav Ila, B'Shem Rav Yasa, Shem B'Chusored Nicha. So he says the reason is you took it, you didn't allow it to fall on the ground. You took it as it was falling. Once it reached on the ground, it's Gemar Malacha, it's Asa Achilas Arai. I bring a raya to Rav Yasa, and we're going to ask him Rav Chisda. So let's see, Rav Yasa was the one who said it's not fallen on the ground yet. Oh, Tanina, we learned in our Mishnah about the Gemar Malacha of the wine. Hayayin Mishi Kapeh. Now, with the wine, you take from the top vat and from the pipe and you drink. Now, Mandam, the one who says the reason is they've not yet fallen on the ground. Nicha. So I understand the wine going from the top vat to the bottom vat, you can take it away and from the pipe, because it's not Gemar Malacha, because it's not yet rested in the bottom vat, right? But Mandam, the one who said the reason of kidney is Ruach, you've not got the wind to blow them away, but with wine that reason doesn't apply. It doesn't need anything else to do. So how can you take it from the pipe and drink it? According to him, even if you find something in the airspace, I mean, maybe it's Gemar Malacha. So Gemara says, the wine is covered still. There is still a malacha to do. If it's not reached the bottom vat, it's mixed with the sediment. And the malacha is not complete until the sediment sinks while it's in the lower vat and becomes clear. We've learned Hashemen, when with oil, although it's gone down, you can take from the various, between the beams or whatever we said, and put it into a boiled dish or whatever, into a tamchoy. Now, Mandam are the one who said, they've not landed on the ground, nicha. So I understand. The oil, say between the boards, is not reached the bottom vat. It's not yet landed, and therefore you're allowed to eat achilas arai because the Gemar Malacha is not done. But Mandam Hashem B'Chusayin L'Ruach, the one who said the reason of the kidneys, because they're B'Chusayin L'Ruach, the wind has not got to it. It doesn't have to land on the ground, but the wind has not moved it. So why is this oil between the boards? Oh, it's not Gemar Malacha. I mean, why is that? Why you can eat achilas arai? I mean, it's not mechusa anything. There's no wind that's going to come over here. It's just not yet reached the container. So Gemara says mechusa hula hatzil. The oil is still lacking because when it's between the boards, it's not clear. It's not going to become clear only it gets down into the later stage. So it's not considered Gemar Malacha until it reaches the stage where it starts clarifying, where it starts becoming clear. Okay, now we said in our Mishnah, the oil that goes into the ukah, although it's fallen down, you can take from the ekel and the mamo between the boards, but no sen lachamita, you put in a chamita and a tamchoy. If you're eating from the oil on Erev Shabbos, which you took from between these boards, and you can eat it at temporary eating, and you had a bit left over, but Shabbos, then Friday night comes, you give it as a gift to someone else. It doesn't become tevel. Now Shabbos is usually kavel amasa. You give a matana to someone else, it's like a transaction, it's kavel amasa. But Shabbos and the Mekach only fix something where there's Gemar Malacha. but this oil is not yet complete. You understand? Rav Yirmiyah Savameh, we wanted to say, B'nosim b'chamitza v'tamchoy. That is, when it's in this roasted dish, whatever, the oil is not tevel, because it's mixed within this mixture, and it's not be'en. However, B'nosim b'sluchis, when you can see it on a plate, nitzmal, the oil becomes tevel, and through Shabbos, it's kabel maaseh, or through a transaction, because since it's on a plate, it's like nigma malacha. Rav Yossi says, no, even if it's on a plate, it's not tevel yet. Rav Yirmiyah said, "En Shabbos tevel, but Shabbos surely should make it tevel. Then mekach tevel, and any transaction should make it tevel. Why are you telling me that the oil in the sluchis is not tevel? It's not kabel maaseh." So he answered back to Rav Yirmiyah, my reason is Kahid Rav Yossi, Rav Yossi B'Shem Razira, Rav Yedah, Rav Yuzira, B'Shem Rav Laza, Av Masha B'Lagid L'Nitzval. Basically, you take a bit of wine from the vat before the Gemar Malacha. You not remove the sediments, whatever it is, and it's not tevel yet, and you take it a bit of wine, B'Tercha Lagid. Shukli Gadol. You know, into a bottle, which is a massive bottle, to drink from it. The wine in the login in these bottles is not tevel. You can drink temporary. It's not considered Gemar Malacha, even though this wine doesn't really need anything else to do. There's no pips or anything. Basically, your intention is to return it, whatever's left, back into the vat, where it's not Gemar Malacha. So it's considered as if the Gemar Malacha is not there, because you're going to return it there. And sending oil in these containers, it's not considered Gemar Malacha, because you're going to return it into between the boards, whatever it is. And since it's not Gemar Malacha, it's not Kabeah through Shabbos or transaction. Do you understand? So what we said, because you're going to return it there, therefore it's not considered Kabeah Maaseh. The Rambam brings a right to the view of Rav Yirmiyah that Shabbos is Kabeah for Maaseh, even oil in this bottle. The proof of Rav Yirmiyah is from the following. Min Hadar. We've learnt in Beitza, the area where they put out all the grapes and figs to dry out, right, and to become raisins, and it's not yet dried out completely. And you stand there, Erev Shabbos b'Shvius, a Friday in the Shemitah year where the fruit is potter from Maasrot. But you can say, I'm designating this is what I'm going to eat tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to eat this tomorrow. I'm going to choose this fruit. I'm going to eat tomorrow, and you remove this amuksa on Shabbos, and you're allowed to take it on Shabbos to go and eat it. If you don't designate it before, then it's amuksa because it wasn't there for it to be eaten, and you can't eat from it on Shabbos. Now, Rav Yelazar didn't say you're allowed to do it Ela B'Shvius only during the Shemitah year, but there's no din Maasrot in that year. But the other years, it's not allowed, right? That designation is not good enough because there's Maasrot obligations. You can't eat from these raisins because it's a tevel. Now, why can't you just eat achilas arai, temporary eating? It's not Gemar Malacha. Now, although the question is about Shabbos, Shabbos is not kaver for Maaseh, something which is not complete. It must be when you take from the grogers to eat. That is the Gemar Malacha, right? You're not going to dry them anymore, and Shabbos is kaver l'maseh. And even though if you leave from a bit, you're going to put them back into the storehouse for drying out. They're choshuv, like the Gemar Malacha, and sending the oil in this bottle. It should be like the Gemar Malacha is here. And Shabbos is kaver l'maseh, even though you can put back whatever's left into something which is not complete. You understand? So you could put it back to not complete. But still, Shemitah, the heter was only in Shemitah, we say. What would Rav Yossi do with this? How would he explain it? According to him, Shabbos is not kaver l'maseh, even the oil in the sluchis, the oil in the pot. So he says the din is different with raisins. You cannot return it on Shabbos what's left over from your eating into the fruit which is set aside to dry. Why? Muksa, because you're making them muksa through this. They become like muksa, and therefore you can't cause something on Shabbos to become muksa. And therefore the raisins, you can't put them back into the fruit which is not Gemar Malacha, and therefore it's like something which is Gemar Malacha. Right? They've got the din there for Gemar Malacha. Lefichach nitzmal, and that's why they become tevel. So Shabbos is kaver l'maseh as opposed to oil in the bottle, where it's considered the no Gemar Malacha, because you can put it back into the oil which is not yet finished. It's not muksa. So basically, you can still put it back into the thing which is not complete, and therefore it's not kabel masa yet. You understand? You've not reached a stage where it's now masa, kabel masa. You have to take masa, because since you can put it back into the underdeveloped stuff and you can mix it together, therefore that the tebel status hasn't yet come.
But you said you can't put it back.
No, since you can put it back, therefore it's not kabel masa, because you can put it back with the stuff which is still underdeveloped. Whereas the grapes you can't put back. Right? The grapes you can't put back. But everything, remember, grapes, when you leave them to dry, they go through a sort of terrible state before they become edible again. Yes. So the grapes you can't put back, but anything else you could put back. So Shabbos Gevela Maser, the oil is like Lo Gemar Malacha, because you can put it back into the oil which is not yet complete, which is not Muksa. The Shabbos is only Kaver thing. When Shabbos Kaver Daba, Shabbos does not Kaver La Maestra, something which is not yet complete. Okay. How are we doing? Right, let's carry on. Masnisa Pliga al Rav Yossi. We've got a question on Rav Yossi Rav Bryce. The Bryce in front of us is arguing on Rav Yossi. Ein arai le Shabbos. Any eating which you eat on Shabbos is considered like achila, which is kaveya, right? The Shabbos is kaveya lamasa. Now it's mashma from here that any situation where you can't eat it on Shabbos achila sarai, even something is not yet gemar malacha, and even in a situation where you can, even in a case where you can put it back.
You can't make muktzah on Shabbos. Muktzah is something that was not.
Muktzah is something you set aside, right?
So muktzah, you can't make muktzah.
But these fruit, this oil, you can still take it back. It's not like, as I said, grapes. Once you put them in that state, they go through a stage where you can't use them. But other things, although you've decided to store it,
before they went into Shabbos for muktzah, if they weren't ready to eat it, you can't then decide to eat them around on Shabbos.
No, but you have to wait for them to become edible again. But everything else doesn't go through that stage. So what are we saying now? The Bryce is telling us, "Ein aral Shabbos, anything which is you're eating is like achilas keva, Shabbos keva lemasa, and 1 second, and it's mashma. You can't even eat achilas arai, even something not yet complete, and even in a way where you can return it back into the non-complete stuff, you're going to be able to put it back, and still Shabbos is keva lemasa. But that's not like Rabbi Yossi. So the answer is, Pasala explains it with muksa. So we're talking about a case where you cannot return it into the rest of the fruits, right? Because it's a muksa. As I said, like these grapes, which go through this stage. So when you take it for eating, it's ma malacha and Shabbos is kavel masa. But if you can return it, right, like the oil in the bottle, whatever it is, then Shabbos is not kavel masa, but it's not yet gemar malacha. So the Gemara actually concludes, this answers all very well with the Brisa, which has got a muksa thing based on the Das of Rav Yossi. But Adated Rav Yirmiyah, according to Rav Yirmiyah's view, he said even oil in a bottle is kaver l'maaseh for Shabbos, right? Lo shani, according to him, there's no difference. He davar sheyesh le muksa, whether it's grapes and raisins. He davar she'ein le muksa, or like the oil, which is never really out of bounds. In both cases, he holds Shabbos is kaver l'maaseh. Okay? Ramana asked, now, according to the topic of Ramana, right, oil in a bottle which you took from between the boards, etc. Ramana boy. Now, according to Rav Yirmiyah, the oil between the boards, you put it in a bottle. It's kaveya for Maseh for Shabbos, right, or through a transaction. What about melea? You had a bottle full of oil, and I don't know. The bottle is in between the boards. You didn't take the bottle from between the boards. You left it there. Nitzbala, is it kaver l'maaseh through Shabbos or transaction? It's in a place where the non-gemar malacha stuff is. It's not gone down into the vats or anything. It's in between the boards, higher up. So, right, bin apatzim, that is a place of oil not yet complete. So therefore, lo nitzbala, maybe it's not tovel. Very good question. Maybe it's not tebel, rather. The Gemara, very good question. The Gemara has no answer. Okay, I think we'll stop here, Rabbi Yisai.